Hello peeps, welcome back to Big Deck Playa. Finally managed to get logged in to be able to play it. Blizzard have obviously had a lot of issues with their login and authentication servers recently, which is why there hasn't been a Big Deck Playa in a week or two. So, what have we got in store this week? We have, if we take you to my collection, we have a Mage deck, which I have called Frosty Secrets. Now, I've done a bit of playing around with this deck. It's kind of based on a couple of other decks that I've seen on various websites. But I found that with my playstyle and the cards that I've got in my collection, I had to make a few alterations. So this is kind of a hybrid of 2 or 3 other decks that I've found, but I've put it together myself. And it works fairly well. I mean, I've called it Frosty Secrets, but there's still fireballs and flame strikes and stuff in there anyway, so yeah, it's not that frosty particularly. So let's start with what this deck is all about. The idea with this deck is to try and keep some board control, and also use cards like the Kirin Mage, which has a battle cry. The next secret costs 0 once you've played that card. So using that, obviously combining it with the secret, and the Ethereal Arcanist, which if you control a secret at the end of your turn, it gains +2/+2. So for example, on turn 7 you could Kirin Mage, place say a counter spell, and your Ethereal Arcanist all in one go, and then at the end of that turn you'll have the 4/3 Kirin Mage on the board, you'll have a 5/5 Ethereal Arcanist, and you'll have your counter spell secret. Now obviously the best way to get your Ethereal Arcanist, if you can keep it alive, then having the Ice Block secret, because that will not trigger until you're down to very, very low health. So you could have your Ice Block up all game, which will pump up your Ethereal Arcanists until either you die or your opponent dies, or they kill off the Ethereal Arcanist as well. So that's kind of like the combo that you're looking at. There's only 3 secrets, so you have to be careful as to when you use them. So we have 2 counter spells and an Ice Block. So they're the only secrets that are in this one. We've also got other combos to use, like having the Mana Worms out. Having a Mana Worm and using a secret, that is classed as a spell, so that will gain 1 attack for that. Mana Worm and a Mirror Image on turn 2 is quite useful as well, because then the Mana Worm gets an extra attack for the Mirror Image. The Frostbolts will buff the Mana Worm, along with Cone of Cold, Fireball, Flame Strike, and then at the bottom we've got 2 Pyroblasts as well. It's a fairly strong deck. There's not a lot of spell power in there. The only real spell power we've got is in the form of the Azure Drake, or spell damage I should say, but that's more for the fact that it's got card draw on it as well. So we've got a couple of Azure Drakes for a little bit of card draw and for a little bit of spell damage. We've also got 2 Blizzards for a little bit of crowd control and board clear, to go with the Flame Strike for board clear. A couple of Fireballs that can obviously be used for either board control or going straight for the face. A Cone of Cold for some crowd control. And obviously Frostbolt again for crowd control. This Frostbolt is also very useful against weapon wielding heroes. So if you come up against a rogue or a warrior or a paladin, freezing them means that they can't attack you with their weapon, which can be pretty useful especially if you're using it to protect, say, your Ethereal Arcanist. Perhaps you get your Ethereal Arcanist out on turn 4 and you're against a warrior who's got a Burning War Axe. If if you can frostbolt the warrior so he can't attack you, then or can't attack your ethereal arcanist, then that might be quite useful. We've also got one Argent Commander because it's a great card, and I don't think I've played many decks where that card is not involved, just for an extra 4 damage, just in case you kind of need to finish something off. And there's a couple of Defender of Argus, because that's the only taunt that's in this deck, is the Defender of Argus, apart from the mirror image, but because they're so weak I don't really count them. They're just more there for some early kind of defensive. So yeah, so we've got the Defender of Argus. A Defender of Argus between a mirror image can be quite effective, because it makes the mirror image thing, it makes the minions you get from the mirror image a little bit more difficult to get rid of, and they'll actually attack as well, which is pretty nice. But failing that, you can use the Defender of Argus with the Azure Drakes, or even the Ethereal Arcanist if you want. Or you can couple them with the Acolyte of Pain, so that they have to hit the Acolyte of Pain, giving you card draw before they can do anything else. And we've also got a couple of Fairy Dragons in there, just because I think Fairy Dragons possibly one of the best 2-cost creatures, arguably one of the best 2-cost creatures, just for the fact that you can't be targeted with spells with it, or the hero powers, so that's pretty nice. So they have to use minions to get rid of the Fairy Dragon, otherwise it's going to start doing some damage. So that's the deck. I don't think there's anything I've missed. I think that's everything. It's fairly simple. It's all about using the right cards at the right time. Obviously, you can use Ice Block whenever you want, as far as the getting the buffs out are concerned. But they're going to figure out eventually that it's an Ice Block, if they know what they're doing. They're going to figure out eventually that it's an Ice Block. So trying to play around with counter spells. You maybe use a counter spell first and then an Ice Block, because they might think it's another counter spell straight away. Stuff like that. You know, just trying not to play both your counter spells one after another, unless it's at a certain point where you think they're going to play something. So it could be if it's turn 5 and you think your priest is going to Holy Nova everything that you've got on the board, then maybe use it then. Or if it's turn 10 against a mage or a priest, then maybe save it for then, so that you don't get mind controlled or pyroblast. You know, just be aware of what your enemy might be doing next. Alright, so that's the deck. Let's see if we can get some good gameplay for you, and let's see it in action, shall we?
Jaina versus Gul'dan.
Your soul shall be mine!
You asked for it.
Alright, so we're up against a Warlock. It's not the best starting hand in the world. I think we're going to get rid of all of those. Keep the Fairy Dragon. Ideally we want Mana Worm and... no. Ideally we wanted the Mana Worm and the Mirror Image. Never mind. Okay, well, let's give him a greeting. Use the coin and get the Fairy Dragon straight out. Now the trick with Warlocks is to try and rush them down fairly quickly. The quicker you take their health down, the less likely they are to use their hero power. Now we get a Mana Worm. Do we want to put the mana out? Well, I don't actually have many spells in my hand, so there's not much point putting the Mana Worm out just yet. So we'll just use the hero power and hit him with the Fairy Dragon. Yeah, the quicker you get the Warlocks down, the less chance they can use their hero power, which means he's using his hero power quite a lot. Okay, that's interesting. Let's get one of the Acolyte of Pain. Let's get one of these out. Hit 3. Now he might be playing a deck that revolves around the giants.
Tazdingo! Yeah.
Because there are some decks, some Warlock decks, that revolve around using giants to kind of... They get really low health and then they put out like 3 giants or something in one turn. And all of a sudden you're like, oh dear. Okay, so what can we do here? Not very much.
What to do? What to do?
Don't actually have enough damage. Well, we can, but we'd lose like... Okay, let's hit him with that first. Let's see what we draw into. Okay.
My shield for Argus!
We can still keep the board control. It's not as good as I'd liked, but it's still there. So we've got the Kirin Mage and the Ethereal Arcanist that we wanted, but we don't have any secrets in the hand, which is not what I wanted. Ah, now we do. Alright. Okay, turn 5. I think we're going to get the Fairy Dragon, and we'll get the Acolyte Pain. We still have board control, but as I said, he hasn't put much out on the board yet. And he's been life tapping quite a lot. He's got 10 cards now. So it could be that he's just cycling through his cards because he wants to get the giants in his hand. I think it's the Molten Giants that cost less for like the lower your health is. So if he gets both of those in his hand and he gets down to like 10 health, then he can be able to put both of them out and they won't cost anything. And then we might have an issue, because might be able to get rid of one of them, but might not necessarily be able to get rid of both of them.
I hope you like my invention.
But he's still on 10 cards. Okay. Interesting. Okay, well, let's kill off that. We'll be able to draw a card. So we've got 6. I think if we put the Mana Worm out this turn, and we'll bring out the Azure Drake this turn, and then we'll hit the Warlock again for 3, and see what happens. Now, I wanted to get the Mana Worm out this turn because I'm hoping that next turn I can do the Kirin Mage, Ethereal Arcanist counterspell. I would have preferred to have had the Ice Block, but I didn't draw into it. Ah, clever move. Well played. Good move. Okay, so we want Kirin Mage. I'm going to use the counter spell. And I'll get the Ethereal Arcanist out.
Job's done.
It's a good combo. And hopefully that will prevent any of the Warlock's spells, like a Shadow Flame or Shadow Bolt. Sorry, no Shadow Bolt for you. You might have a Shadow Flame though.
Who dares
Nope.
summon me?
Oh, that was his Illidan just gone. Okay. Okay, so let's use the Azure Drake. Let's see what we'll draw into. Ah, excellent. In that case, we shall have a Mana Worm and the Mirror Image. And then we'll hit him in the face for 4. Because he's got to get through 2 taunts before he can get to me or my other minions. And we can use Cone of Cold next turn, which will freeze them both. Although we kind of want to get rid of both of those. So, yeah. Although the Cone of Cold does 2 damage now, so... because of the Azure Drake.
We must cleanse the Sunwell.
I haven't got quite enough damage, enough mana for the Pyroblast. 7.
We must cleanse the Sunwell.
Unless he puts a taunt up, I can do lethal this turn anyway.
My shield for Argus.
I spoke too soon. Okay. Okay. So this is still going to do 2 damage, so that will kill off that one. Okay, we'll do that here. That will kill off that. Use the hero power to kill off that. The Zero Drake can kill off that. Mana Worm can kill off that. Kirantor Mage can kill off that. And I could put the ice block up. Well, we've got 3 mana and I can't do anything else, so why not? It'll make him think that I can do something that I can't. Okay, so next turn I can Pyroblast. And if he hasn't got a taunt up, then I can hit him with one of my other 2 minions. Well, with one of my other minions. Okay, I can't hit him with one of my minions. Oh, I don't need to, because he's just sealed his own fate. That was stupid.
Whoops.
And that's the end of that. So it kind of shows you how it can work. It wasn't the like a flawless victory, which is what I would have liked to have shown you, but how often does that actually happen? Not very often, in my experience. It's a fairly strong deck. It's fairly strong. I mean, obviously card draw is going to affect what cards you have in your hand at any time, but that's the case with any deck. You always have that little bit of luck involved with when you're pulling cards. So that's the Frosty Secrets deck. I hope you've enjoyed watching this video. If you decide to use this deck, let me know how you get on, because I'd love to hear from you. If you make any videos using this deck, then send me a link and I'll check them out, because I'd love to see how you get on. Okay, that's the end of this big deck player. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I shall see you next time. Thanks again. Goodbye.